It's time for the Double Stop with Brian Sword. Welcome to the Double Stop. I'm Brian Sword. This week on the show, I've got an interview with drummer Chris Moore. Now, you may be saying to yourself, who's Chris Moore? Well, Chris Moore is a drummer who's got two new bands, one with George Lynch, one with Craig Goldy. Neither of these bands have really gone overly public yet, but the record with George Lynch is done, and he's demoing new songs with Craig Goldy. Now, the thing about this story and why it's important is that Chris was a drummer on the LA scene back in the day, back in the early 80s, and he had some near misses with some bands. It just never quite worked out for him, so he gave it up, went to college, and kind of turned his back on music, really completely. And then 20 years or so later, he kind of got the bug again, like many of us do, and started playing again, and kind of fell in love with drums again, which led him to quit his day job and pursue music full time. And that's why I think you really want to check this one out, is because it's a really inspiring story and one that many of us have probably thought about. And now it's all really kind of coming together for him. He's got this new band with George Lynch, previously called the Infidels, and they're in the middle of changing their name. And this other band with Craig Goldy called Endangered Species, which again are also in the process of changing their name. But that's all going to come to light pretty quickly. You're going to start hearing his name a lot. And so this is a real good early interview with him to really get his story as you start seeing his name more and more often. So this week I've got the story of Chris Moore, a drummer you're going to hear a lot of in the very near future.
That's a good one. So I grew up in Arcadia, California, and my family is probably the least musical family you could ever imagine. And my, just very conservative family. My dad still is a dentist, and so music was not a really big part of our family, but for some reason I just really took to the drums. So that's how that went. But yeah, as a kid, I was tic-tacking along, with the silverware, like most drummers, I guess, start out. And then, parents bought me one of those paper drum sets, which I destroyed. And then that was about, I think, my 4th birthday. And then my 5th birthday, they bought me another one and I destroyed that. And then right around that same time, they ended up buying me a real snare drum, and then they got me a cymbal, and wouldn't stop playing that. And then finally, a neighbor kid named Kenny Blair lived across the street. His family was moving over the summer, and they'd put their stuff in storage. They needed a place to keep his drum set. So the deal was he could keep it at my house, I could play it, and then at the end of the summer he would, he'd take it back. And of course, at the end of the summer, my parents bought the drum set for me.
Well, I gotta say, for a family who wasn't particularly musical, it's pretty supportive, because drums for a parent are kind of the ultimate nightmare.
Oh yeah, no, it was. They were very supportive of it from that standpoint, because they just knew it was just something I had to do. And, and I guess I was good at it. And so they sort of recognized that. And we had a room in the corner of the house upstairs that was, when I was a kid, when I was little, it was the playroom. It had all our toys. And then before too long, that was where it was, again, up in the corner away as far as possible from everything. And that was where my first band, Rampage, rehearsed, was up in that room. So the 4 of us were crammed in this tiny little bedroom size thing and just, shook the windows in the house.
Now, in terms of learning drums, were you self-taught, or did you take lessons? Did you have a cool kid down the block show you stuff, or how'd that go down?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The kid, Kenny Blair, that I was talking about, when he brought the drum set over, I had no idea how to play a beat or anything like that. And so I sat there watching him, and he played a beat to sort of demonstrate what it was. and he showed me how to play the first beat. But when I was watching him play, it literally looked like magic to me. I couldn't understand how somebody could put all that together and make that cool noise, come out of a bunch of drums, because I was so used to just my snare drum and cymbal, or just a snare drum, and so I was like, how do you do that? It was like a magic trick. So then he showed me how to do it, and it was like after that it was on, but that was how I first learned, and then I got my parents' stereo and got a pair of headphones and started playing to whatever records they had, which was like the Carpenters and 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 then, which by the way, Karen Carpenter was an amazing, awesome drummer, but anyway, and so then of course my older brother, who's a couple years older, brought home a Kiss record, Kiss Alive, and that was it. That was my that was my thing. And then so it was like Kiss and Van Halen. I mean, before Van Halen, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, Queen, all that kind of stuff, Ted Nugent. And then all of a sudden, we got the Van Halen record, and that was it. They became and still are my favorite band.
It's funny because I asked these questions to everybody, and you're, I think, interview 80 or something like that. And depending on the age of the person I'm talking to, if they're a certain age, it's Kiss. If they're a little bit older, it's the Beatles. But it's the same every time.
Yeah, no, and you think back to those bands and just the incredible influence that they had on so many people for so many different reasons, and and it was like that with Van Halen, but it was much more serious, because now I could play pretty well and all that, and I recognize the talent, but it's to this day I think Alex Van Halen has gotten the least, or is the most underrated drummer out there, and he's just always been overshadowed. But amazing hands. He can play double bass like a madman, and he's just such a great drummer. But it was unfortunately it was so overlooked because of Ed. But yeah, so going back to that stuff, so that's how I learned how to play was playing the records, and then like 7th grade, my first band kind of got together and we started playing, and so then I think when I was around like maybe 14, maybe 13 or 14, I tried to take drum lessons from a guy, and I play open lefty. I play left-handed on a right-handed kit. They call it open lefty or open-handed. And this guy wanted me to change over and cross over and play right-handed on a right-handed kit, and it just didn't feel right. And so I ended up quitting trying to take lessons, and I just ended up figuring it out on my own. And then later on, when I was maybe 16, 17, there was a band called Smile in LA that was back in the Van Halen days when they were getting, trying to get signed and stuff. Smile and Van Halen my old band used to open for him all the time, and I'd say, Jim, could I take lessons from you? And I'd drive over to his house, and he'd show me all these cool things. And what's funny is a lot of the chops that I use today were from Jim that morphed into, stuff. So, yeah.
And you said your first band was Rampage. Can you tell me about them?
Yeah, Rampage was great. And we actually just reunited for a few songs at the Van Halen Rising book launch the other night, a week ago tonight. Yeah, it was Michael Anthony's little brother, actually, from Van Halen, Dennis, his bass player, and then so we got together with another guitar player and started doing stuff, and that guitar player bailed, and we went through a couple of guys and then and a couple of singers, but we wound up with a guy named Todd Bozung, who's now like a music supervisor for a big movie studio, and then a guy named Bruce Fernandez came in and started singing, and so we had this great sort of synergy between the four of us, and started playing, just the Ice House in Pasadena, and there was a club called Pookie's in Pasadena. And an interesting side note is that Motley Crue played their first club show, to my knowledge, they played their first club show at Pookie's, opening for my band Rampage. and they were good. You know, I remember when they got up on stage, they had their stuff together. Like, they had their own little banner that was like half black, half white with, you know, opposite colored letters for Motley and Crew. And, you know, Tommy Lee got up on the drums and took off his Converse high tops and played barefoot. And I watched him do that, and I was like, I've never seen anybody do that. And then he got up and just, you know, killed it. He just slamming double bass, great drummer, and you know, even at a young age. And so I was like, wow, you know, they were off to the races after that, man. So yeah, so Rampage played Pookie's and Ice House, and then we went and we played the Whiskey, Gazzari's. We did all that before Gazzari's closed down. And anyway, so that was until I was a senior in high school. And when I was a senior in high school, I moved on to a band called BVSI. And so I was in BVSI. We worked our way up. They had a poll, a reader's poll in a magazine called Music Connection, which was the big LA music magazine for musicians. And they had a thing called Pick of the Players that they did. And they asked all the different musicians around LA who they thought the best band was. And for some crazy reason, we won. And I still have that issue somewhere. And what's so funny about it, when you look at the people who voted for us, now this was in 1984, and the people who voted for us were like Lars from Metallica, Bret Michaels from Poison, and somebody from Warrant, I think. But it was like, you know, all these guys that I was just kind of like, wow, really? Okay. So we won, and then all of a sudden we started, you know, doing bigger shows and kind of worked our way up. And I took a year off before I went to college to try and make it, so to speak. My parents were, you know, really wanted me to go to college, and I really wanted to be a rock star. And so that's what happened. I wound up, you know, just spending a year trying to make it. And toward the end of that year, we connected with a guy named Paul Rothschild, who had produced The Doors. And he, you know, he brought us in and said, you know, hey, I want to work with you guys. I want to take a young American band and make great American music like The Doors made. And nobody's really done that since Van Halen. So I really think you guys could be that band. And we were different than the Sunset Strip bands because we were selling out the Troubadour and the Roxy and all that kind of stuff. But we weren't the typical Sunset Strip, you know, hair metal band. We were, you know, the lyrics said something. There was more musicality. We could all kind of play pretty well. And so so Paul Rothschild recognized that in us and wanted to, you know, do this thing. And he's like, hey, man, I think you guys can do this. And so he said, I'm going to take you in the studio. I'm going to do a demo, and I'll pay for it. And I'm going to shop it to David Geffen because he started Geffen Records. And I think you guys are going to get a deal, and I really believe you'll be the next great American band. And I went home that night. My parents were like, how'd the meeting go? And I'm like, I think we're going to make it. You know, I really do. And, you know, and so anyway, so I'm like 19 years old thinking, okay, here we go. And we went into pre-production, and Paul Rothschild showed up and started, you know, giving us suggestions for the songs. And the other guys in the band were very leery of somebody taking over our music. You know, they were very afraid of somebody telling us what to play and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, the guys were really rejecting Paul's suggestions. And, you know, I remember he left the pre-production session not happy, and I walked him out to his car. I followed him out to his car. I'm like, you know, Mr. Rothschild, I'm so sorry. You know, I'll talk to the guys. And he said, no, you know, he said, you guys will find somebody. You're a good band, but, you know, I can't work like this. And so that was it. So we, you know, he was still kind of in it. Like we played the Roxy the following week. You know, weekend, and we sucked. We had a bad show. We had a bad night, and he came up to the manager and me after the show, and he said, you know, I shook our hands and said, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And the manager turned to me and said, "We just lost Paul Rothschild." And I said, "You guys just lost me. I'm going to go to college." And that was it. So I went and got a degree in finance. And I was like, I'm tired of it. I'm not going to do this. I just got tired of that scene. And it was, it was just, I was tired of seeing, a lot of these bands that really weren't very good, musicians, and really were just in it to party like rock stars and all that. And, they just weren't, it was that. And they were having this huge success, but I knew it was driven by producers, and they were having other musicians actually play, like studio musicians actually play on the records and all that. And I'm like, okay. So I just kind of got, I just sort of blew out of that thing and decided to go play it safe and go get a degree in finance.
When you look back at that studio experience, was he just being a typical producer, or do you think he was?
Oh no, he had done the work. I mean, he really did the work. Like he had a yellow pad with notes and notes about our songs and just ideas and suggestions. And it wasn't that he was coming in saying, like, I'm going to create a boy band type of thing and I'm going to, mold you into my, evil little project. It was like he really had some solid ideas and suggestions that he had really spent time on. And so the problem was, as an example, he would take a song and say, "Okay, guys, instead of having an intro and then going into the first verse and then a chorus, why don't you start with the chorus, then do your intro, then go into the first verse, and then come back to the chorus?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's brilliant! What a great idea!" Just from an arrangement standpoint. And the other guys were like, "No, I wrote this song. I'm not going to compromise the integrity of my music." So it was that kind of vibe. I mean, and it's cool. I understand both sides of it, but this is the truth. I pulled the guys back to my drums in the middle of this thing. I'll never forget it. I pulled them back to my drums and I said, "You guys, this is Paul Rothschild." I said, he produced The Doors. He was there with Morrison. And I told the guys, and pardon my language, but I said, "You guys are fucking this up." That's exactly what I told them. And they were kind of like, "Well, at least we have our integrity." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So, and that's okay. Again, you figure, we were this band that was selling out, these LA venues, and we were sort of underground rock stars at that time. So everybody felt invincible, but it just, for me, there were so many events that just led up to, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not, it was so, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the business, and it just became so apparent that I wanted to do something else with my life at that point, that, and kind of figure out, I felt like I was missing out on something because everybody I knew was in college and that kind of thing.
So when you went to college, did you turn your back on music at that point and put down the drumsticks, or were you still dabbling?
Yeah, no, I sold all my gear.
Oh, wow.
Stopped playing completely and just focused on that. And of course, I really missed it. I did. I would find, I catch myself, I was still spending crazy amounts of money on music and, really missing it. And I, talk about it all the time and all that kind of stuff. But I was just like, look, I got to do this. I got to work really hard in school. And I did. I worked my ass off and got a degree, and I was, interning at Merrill Lynch in downtown San Diego and, all this kind of stuff. So, but I finally, after, I started my career, graduated, started my career in finance and had a good run and, got married and had a family and all that. And again, all the while, I just kept missing music. And so I slowly started, moving back toward it. And one day, just for absolute fun, I took my kids, put them in the car, went to Guitar Center, and bought a drum set, just like a Saturday afternoon. Like, I'm doing this today. And yeah, put it in the corner of my living room like it was furniture. And it was a cool-looking piece of furniture.
Yeah.
And I'd sit down and play for like 5 or 10 minutes and, put it down again, and that was it. And, never really did much with it. And then actually the old singer from VVSI, we happened to be at a party together in LA one night, and this was about 10 years ago, and they were having a jam thing, and he and I ended up in the same jam, And he kind of came up to me afterward and said, "Man, you still got it." He's like, "When are we going to play in a band together again?" So I was like, "Okay, So I started playing with him, and it was like a classic rock, sort of, southern rock type of band. It was just easy stuff to play, but the the fuse was lit, man. I started playing way more serious again, and I started teaching. I was like, there was a point where I had a few friends who were bona fide rock stars, and I was like, you know what? Why not me? Why can't I do this? And so I really started focusing on it and started learning the things that it takes to play in a pro band, like, learning to play with a metronome, always playing with a click, learning to set up tracks and do things like that. And so it just became this evolution where I'd practice with a click, rehearse with a click, play live with a click, record, with a click and all that. And then, just knowing people, knowing kind of good people, and things just started progressing and playing certain types of music. And I started getting into more, heavier stuff and the double bass stuff. And there's a drummer named Shane Gallus who is one of the best drummers in the world. And I heard a record that he had played on called Diesel Machine. And I was like, I turned to my buddy who was playing it for me and said, I don't think I could ever play like that. And about 6 months later, after really applying myself, I was playing that same song,
And how many years did you take a break from music then?
It was, I think it was about 15 years.
Wow. That's not just a break. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and it was good. I kind of needed that because it was sort of like going to college. When I went to college, it was because I wanted to go, not because my parents were making me go. I really chose to go, and I did well because when I was in high school, I was going to be a rock star, so to speak. So I got terrible grades, I just didn't care. And so when I went to college, I was concerned about that. Like, wow, I didn't get very good grades in high school, but because I wanted to be there in college, I was, things went really well. So when I turned back to music, it was because I really wanted to, and so things progressed, I think because of that. And I really had missed it. So every day I'm grateful these days that I can play music,
So you get back into music, you get your chops up and probably beyond where they were when you were younger. And then what's the next thing that happens to get you back into major bands?
Yeah, so there was I wanted to play heavier music and I wanted to do the double bass stuff. I was really getting into that. And there was a band, called Orcus, Orcus, that I played in. It was an Armenian black metal band. And they were younger guys from Southern California, and a great band, really good guys. I miss those guys. They're just, really great band, really fun, and very encouraging to me to really go for it and really play out and do the craziest stuff I could. So, we became we were headlining the Whiskey and, doing that kind of stuff. And one night, a guy named Neil Turbin came to one of the shows, and he was the original singer in Anthrax. So Neil was looking for a drummer for his band, and so asked if I would, ever be interested in filling in or whatever. And of course, I was sort of blown away by that whole thing and ended up really working closely with Neil and joined his band and played with him for a couple of years. And then during that time, a guitar player came into that fold, because I think we went through 4 or 5 guitar players in a 2-year span. And one of those guitar players was a guy named Steve McKnight, who played with a band called Cry Wolf back in the 80s and early 90s. And he, played me some of the Cry Wolf stuff, and it was more rock, but, he's like, Cry Wolf basically was on tour in the early 90s in Houston, and their equipment truck was stolen. And they called the label to get more gear, and they dropped them. So they just kind of all went home and quit and either went back to school or went and got a job or whatever, and they just kind of all left music, and they had this sort of unfinished business. So they said, we have a bunch of songs that we wrote that we wanted to do a second record. We never did. And so I listened to that stuff. I'm like, I'm going to start practicing this, man. Would you guys want to record this record? I'll play on it. And I ended up joining the band. I left Neil's band and joined up with those guys, and we did a record called 2010, which obviously came out in 2010. and it was cool, man. It was a great record, and and all that. But so the thing with Cry Wolf that was hard was that love those guys, love that band. They just weren't as serious as I was about playing music professionally, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. It's like some people have that thing of like, I'm doing this if it kills me. And there's other people that are like, they're cool to go play a gig and kind of get their rock star fix and, have a good time. And people come up, yeah, you guys are awesome, thanks, and you're not making a living at it, but you're getting the benefit of, you're an original band, you wrote your own music, and, you go play a show and you feel like you accomplished something. And that's cool, that's good enough. So, but I had kind of more going on that I wanted to do. So.
And then what did you do after that band? Did they break up then, or did you just leave it?
Well, excuse me. So what ended up happening was, this was really this sort of evolution of stuff that I mean, one thing after another. It was crazy. So during that time, toward the end of that, or when I was in Cry Wolf, there was a point where one of my really good friends is a guy named Vic Johnson, and he plays guitar with Sammy Hagar's band. So he's in the Wabos, and then he's also the guy that's in that, they call it the Circle. And so it's Sammy. Yeah, okay, Sammy, Jason Bonham, Michael Anthony, and then Vic is a guitar player. So Vic is one of my really, really good friends, and I mean, just for the longest time, and just a super good guy. So when Cry Wolf when we were going to do our record, we wanted to get it mixed by a pro, and I called Vic and said, hey, do you know anybody? And he said, yeah, Sammy's guy is a guy named Bob Daspit. You've got to use him. You've got to work with Bob. And I ended up calling Bob, and he is the most down-to-earth, normal, great guy. You'd never know that he's Sammy Hagar's producer, or that he's mixed these amazing records, or he did 12 movies with Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer and all this as a composer, and he's just unreal. His body of work is just ridiculous, incredible. So anyway, I'm talking to Bob, and he starts singing VVSI songs for me on the phone. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, man, my band Justice opened for you guys at the Waters Club in San Pedro. And I'm like, are you kidding
wow.
me? He's like, I idolize you guys, man. You're one of my, So anyway, so Bob and I became really, really good friends. He's just, as I say, it's just this, he's just a machine. He's amazing at how much he knows about everything music. Is just incredible. So anyway, Bob and I became friends over that time of him mixing the record, which he did an amazing job with that. And then we just talk now and then, hey, what's going on? Just checking in, And so finally one day a few years ago, he called me. He's like, you know what, Chris? He goes, I do, because he composes music for TV shows and movies and things like that, like film scores and stuff. And he goes, when I'm doing this stuff, sometimes I really don't like to program the drums, mainly because, it's like I don't want to take the time to do it. It's, and I'm not that good at it, and it sounds fake and all that. I want to get a natural feel. He goes, what if I send you a gear list of stuff to buy, and you just set up, because you're there practicing in your studio every day, why don't you set up your rig to record? And that way, if I've got a track that I need drums on, I can just send it to you and you can record on it, and I can pay you for it. And I'm like, it's like you'll make money while you're sitting in your studio playing. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So sure enough, I got the money together and I went out and bought a recording rig for my studio, and it's set up there. So I started doing that with Bob, and then I've done that with other artists where my drum set's set up in my studio. Somebody sends me a track. It could even be just like, somebody with an acoustic guitar played to a click and they're singing or whatever or not. And then I take it and load it into my system, play drums on it, send them the drum track. And when they sign off on it, I send them an invoice and they PayPal me my fee.
Yeah, Kenny Aronoff's been making a fortune doing that for years.
Yeah. So, it's and there's something to be said about having live drums on a recording, because the truth is, when I see or when I hear a song that the drums are programmed, I know it immediately. And I know they try to put this human feel into it, and they do all that kind of stuff, and it's like, why go to all that brain damage and scar tissue when you could just have a real drummer play on it, And back in the days of, say, when, Mutt Lange started doing that with different bands, and you had that where they start programming drums on records, it was mostly because they didn't want to spend the studio time and money to have the drummer not get it right, and they'd have to punch in and do all this other stuff, and they'd be like, you know what, we could just take a day and program it, or half a day and program the song, and it's done, and loop it, and all that other stuff. And but to have that human feel is so important. And so anyway, that's how I started doing that. And then so yeah, in this evolution, so I started making videos and putting them on YouTube of me playing this stuff. And there was a band called 208 Talks of Angels from Russia, of all places, that sent me a track, asked me to play on it for them, and it was an incredible experience. The song's called Hero of Past, and if you look it up on YouTube, there's words that scroll at the beginning that I wrote that talked about it. And I'm like, I'll probably never meet these amazing people or play music with them in the same room, but they really have touched my life, because here we are, different, on opposite sides of the world, and different political ideologies or whatever that our respective governments have, and yet here we are creating this song together. That's so
it's amazing with the technology change, like you talk about with drums.
Yeah.
Well, with the technology change, yeah, it's easier now to actually record them live, probably in a home studio. But now you can record across the world and never meet somebody. Like, people always talk bad about the technology change and the demise of music, but in certain ways, the technology has created some pretty cool things.
Yeah, I think that it's all in how you use it, and are you using it to do something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do, or are you doing it to be lazy? I think that's the real difference between the two. And in this case, it was, there's no way I'm going to Russia. There's no way those guys are coming over here anytime soon. And we wanted to just do this song, and wow, and I've subsequently done a few songs with them, and they're great, and I love them. We message back and forth, and they're just so, respectful and grateful, and I'm respectful and grateful, and we just have this really cool connection, and, they're just very, very special people and musicians. Incredible musicians too, man. Like, when I got the song, when they finished the final mix of Hero of Past and sent it to me, I was completely blown away, because the vocals are really cool. There's the girl singing on it. I don't think she speaks English at all. I think she's just singing phonetically, and it's just so cool, because I'm like, I could not have a conversation with her. She wouldn't understand it, nor would I understand her. But yet here she is singing in English. And then when it came time for the guitar solo, I was thinking, okay, I wonder if this guy's going to try to do the Shredosaurus Rex stuff to really try to impress people. And it was the most tasteful, really just killer tone. My God, I had tears in my eyes listening to it, because I was like, these guys really get it. They really get it. And it just, such a cool experience, and all because of technology, So I was doing that, and then what ended up happening was with Craig Wolf, I finally, in fact, it's so funny, it's coming up on 2 years ago, November 2nd, I think, 2 years ago, that I decided to just leave Craig Wolf, and it was clear that they were not, interested in going to the next level, and I was, and so I just said, they are an anchor holding me back, and I can't do that anymore. And again, nothing against them, it's just that, we had a couple of really key shows. We were opening for Foreigner in front of a couple thousand people at these sold-out venues, and we were, instead of, really doing it, we rehearsed maybe a total of an hour, where I was as soon as I found out we were doing those gigs, I was practicing the set 2 and 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and it was kind of like, do we really have to rehearse? And yeah, we have to rehearse, and we ended up playing our set, which was I think a half an hour, or 40 minutes or whatever. We played it like once or twice total. And I think we had 2 rehearsals, and we played the set once each time, and that was it. And out of a 3-hour block, we played like 30, 40 minutes. And I was like, you know what? And then when we went and played the show, instead of being amazing and tight and really taking that opportunity, we were just kind of an opening band, and it was just really disappointing. And I went, you know what? I gotta just cut this chain. So I did, and that's when things really took off. That was because I was now an independent artist, and a lot of these artists who had wanted to work with me but thought I was tied in with this one band and were afraid to get into that. Now all of a sudden they were approaching me, and things started really taking off, and I started doing these recording projects. And then a few months after that, I was contacted by a guy named Troy Stetna, who's an amazing guitar player, probably one of the best guitar player musicians in the world. And he did a book for Hal Leonard Publishing years ago called Speed Mechanics for Guitar, and it's one of their best-selling guitar books. And so he was asked by Hal Leonard, do you know of a good drummer that would do Speed Mechanics for drums? And so Troy and I had kind of gone back and forth a couple times just on Facebook. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And I was like, well, Troy, I would, but I'm not really, I can play really fast. And like my drum solo video, if you look up like Chris Moore drum solo on YouTube, I can play fast, and okay, that's fine. But that's not really what I'm about. I'm really a groove drummer. But I could share my knowledge of what I know about playing fast and the things that have gotten me to where I can play fast. And he's like, yeah, why don't you send me an outline? So I did, and I really sat down and thought about it, and I was like, these are some of the things that if I could tell someone, because I'm not a drum teacher, and I don't want to be a drum teacher, and that kind of thing. But if somebody were asking me, how did you get there? These are the things that I did, So I kind of wrote this outline and sent it to him, and he really liked it. He said, send me a table of contents. So I, did the kind of put my dream on paper and wrote out what I would want to tell somebody. And Hal Leonard greenlit the book. And I wrote a I think it's a 100-page book or whatever it is, but it's called Speed Mechanics for Guitar, and Speed Mechanics for Drums, sorry. And it goes through hand exercises, and it really goes through my the building blocks of how to build speed with the hands, and then it goes to building speed with the feet, and then putting hands and feet together, and then putting it all together on the drum set. And the whole idea is, and then there's some chops in there and stuff that I give, toward the end of it. So it's really designed to be a practical, here's how you do it type of thing, or this has been, how I learned how to do it, and it works for me. You know what I mean? So, but what was also really interesting was that I told Troy, because he said, all these exercises that you're talking about, you have to notate them. And I like, honestly, Troy, I don't know how to read or write music. I can do a little bit of drum set music, but I really, to write this stuff out, and he's like, you got to figure it out, and I can help you. I will help you if you want. And so it turned out that I actually have my wife write them out because she was a music student, and she knew how to do it. So we
awesome.
downloaded the software, and she wrote all this stuff out, and then at the end of it, I had the idea of writing. Oh, so they liked all that. They wanted more and more of that. They dug it. Everything was cool. And then they said they liked it so much, and they had seen my videos, that they wanted me to make a DVD that would go along with it. So I started filming these DVD clips, and then we had to write out the exercises there. And then the end of it was I wrote a drum track, 5-minute drum track, that's like a song. I wrote it and recorded it and then sent it to Troy, and he played guitar and bass on it. And the song's called Kaleidoscope. And we made a sort of a music video of that, and it incorporates a lot of the concepts and ideas from the book, okay, and the DVD. So yeah, thanks. So anyway, so you'll see that soon. But the whole idea is it's kind of rip roaring, 5 minutes of. It's not just a shred fest on drums. There's breaks in it, it breathes, and there's actually kind of a shuffle reggae type of beat that I do in the end of it, but yet everything is designed to be that when you're going to play a rip and drum fill, most drummers will, I see it, habitually they do this. They go to do something fast and it drops out in the mix because they don't apply the proper amount of force or power behind that fill because they're so busy trying to play fast that no one gets to hear it anyway because it drops out in the mix. And only if they do it recorded and the engineer, pushes the volume, no one's going to hear that really fast rip and drum fill. So this is a way to really actually jump out in the mix when you do something fast. So Kaleidoscope sort of shows that. It's cool.
And when do you think that's going to come out, that video?
That will come out, I believe they want to release it. So the book and DVD are done. That was a year of my life, man. That was hard work every day. I believe they want it to come out in time for the NAMM show, so right around the first of the year it should be out. And it'll be called Speed Mechanics for Drums. And so, and then what was kind of cool as a sort of the final piece to that was Troy was doing there was a guitar festival in August this past, a couple of months ago, and in Milwaukee where he lives, and he was a judge for the guitar contest, and he did a master class, and and all this other stuff, and they asked him to perform. So he headlined one of the nights, and he asked if I wanted to play drums. So they flew me out there, and I actually was able to play Kaleidoscope live with Troy for the first time, and I played the rest of his set. So he has a bunch of really cool songs that are great, rock guitar songs that are instrumental, but he has this really melodic way of playing, ripping fast stuff and making it sound amazing. So I was really grateful to be part of that with him, man.
Now, for writing a book, I think people underestimate the challenge of writing a book. It's like I've said it before, it's really easy to start one of those things, but it's really hard to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
In terms of, you said it was a year of your life, I would imagine at that point you were pretty thankful you went back to university.
Yeah, and you know what? I really loved. I really do like writing a lot, and so I really did enjoy that process of the book, and kind of saying, hey, this is what I went through, and I'm going to save you the time of trying to figure it out. Here's an easy way to get to that. That place where you're playing really well and you're playing, clean, fast, drum strokes, accurate drum strokes, and doing what you want to do on the kit. Here are the building blocks to help you get there. But, like with Kaleidoscope, the other part of it was I kept, through the book, I kept sort of having these little, I'd have little mini goals set for myself. But I'd feel like, okay, I think I'm done, and then it'd be like, you know what? But I need to do this, or and then the publisher would ask for more of, we really like this. Could you also do this? And I'd be like, yeah, okay, and all those ideas were good, but it just was this process where it's almost like in a movie where somebody's running towards something and he keeps going away from them. It was like that.
Yeah.
And then, but the cool part though was that at the end of it, they loved the Kaleidoscope thing, and they said, you need to notate it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. I didn't even know what I'm playing. I don't know what I'm playing. And I'm not kidding, Brian. There were points where, I had to take, okay, here's what I did. So my wife was going to notate it, and it wound up looking like a black page by Zappa kind of a thing. And I mean, it's just pages of just notes, drum notes, drum set music. But what happened was, I actually downloaded an app on my phone that would take video and slow it down 75%. And so I would play the song, and I would actually, the song is recorded at a tempo of 170 beats per minute, and I slowed it down to 120 and played it, and then I slowed that down 75% on this app. So I'd film it on my phone, and then slow it down even to that, so that she could actually see and hear every single drum stroke, so she could notate it. And I sent her that in 30-second sections at a time. And it took, I think just to notate that took over a week.
It's like cracking a code.
Yeah. Like that. I mean, it was insane, man. But, got it done, and it was really cool because in that, in some of this music software, you can actually hit play, and it will play your composition of the notes that you've, written out. And hitting play on that the first time really tripped me out, because I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That's my drumming. That's Kaleidoscope. I wrote that, Anyway, and so, so in this evolution, so what ended up happening there was that, excuse me, as I was recording the DVD parts, because and again, man, I was in the studio all day and sometimes all day and night recording all these clips, and I ended up recording 70 clips that'll make up the DVD, and each one of those I describe what I'm gonna, the exercise and the concept, and then I actually play it, and so I did this whole thing myself. So I had to do the talking part correctly and not screw that up. Then I had to play it correctly and not screw that up. And then I recorded it obviously with my pro recording rig on my kit, and then I would have to take that audio and match it up with the video and edit the whole thing together for each clip. So it was like, there were days where I would do maybe even one clip over a 2-day period. I think my record was, I think I was able to do 3 clips in one day that were just short clips at one point, but for the most part, it was like 1 clip per day if I was lucky, and sometimes, again, it would. So when I was telling Troy, oh yeah, I'm just going to film the DVD part, it should take me a week or so, I'll be done. No, man, it was months. It was brutal.
And you did it all yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did. And the other thing, because I was thinking about it, and I was like, if I go to a studio, I don't want to pay for the studio time when I have my own rig, but also I want to be able to take my time, and I don't want to feel the pressure of, well, I'm paying for this and these guys are here. I wanted to be able to kind of go through it like, you know what, I wouldn't want to hear this. If I were watching this, I wouldn't want to hear the guys say whatever. So I was able to kind of edit myself as I went, and it just made it much more, the quality came out, much more satisfied with the quality of it now. But anyway, so what I did was I was taking excerpts of those clips. I was taking little excerpts, and I was posting them on YouTube and on Facebook and all that. And sure enough, Craig Goldy, the guitar player from Dio, had a band he was putting together, and he and the guys were looking online for a drummer, and they saw one of my videos, and they were like, this is the guy. They saw that as soon as I started playing, they told me after the fact, they were like, we started watching your video, and we're like, this is the guy. And then they watched another video, and they're like, this is definitely the guy. And so I got this crazy Facebook message just over a year ago, and it was like, hey, this is what we're doing. I couldn't believe it when I was reading it. I was like, I kind of was like, wait, well, really? And sure enough, man, we called each other and started talking, and these guys are super cool guys and amazing musicians. And so that was what became Endangered Species. And so we went and did a show. We did a show last October 17th. It was going to be our first sort of, this is my new band. And so what Craig did was they had a thing at the Ramona main stage. They were doing like this kind of hometown hero series in San Diego, and they had Craig as one of the nights. And so he had his past, present, and future bands play. So we had Jafria play, and I think Rough Cut or something, semblance of that. And then for the present, he had Dark Knights Rising, or the Dio thing.
Dio's Disciples?
It wasn't Dio's Disciples, Black Knights Rising. Anyway, but he had, so Craig got up there and did the Dio stuff with those guys, and he had Vinny playing drums, right? and then we were the headliner, or kind of whatever. We were the last act, but we were the future. So as our new band, and what was a trip was at that show. I'm sorry, Dio Disciples. Yes, it was Dio Disciples. I was thinking of the Black Knights Rising thing. Yeah, it was Dio Disciples was playing, and so they were sound checking, and we had already done our sound check. Everything was cool, but they were sound checking, and so we were running late. The show was running late, and it was about, I don't know, maybe a half hour. Doors were supposed to have opened at maybe 7, and it was around 7:30, something like that. And I walked outside because I looked out, and, this is now getting into mid to late October, and it's kind of cold outside. And there's a line down the street. And I'm like, wow, man. So I walked out there, and I said to the people in line, I'm like, hey, you guys, sorry about this. We're going to get going in a second. It's just they're waiting I said they're still sound checking, and nobody knew who I was. So it was really hilarious. And they're like, oh, do you work here?
Yeah, you're
like,
a roadie?
yeah. I go, well, kind of, and so anyway, then a couple of people recognized me, and so we started talking, and we were just hanging out on the sidewalk talking. And then so when we played, it was later in the night, it was this, complete, like, oh my God, who are these guys type of thing. It was really cool, the reaction we got. And it was so funny because all these people are like, that was that guy on the sidewalk, And but anyway, so yeah, we had a really, really good show, and Craig was just super psyched, and he's just such a great guy, and the rest of the guys, I mean, in that band, it's like, you think about it, so there's Craig, and then there's Wayne Finley on keyboards and second guitar, who tours with Michael Schenker. He's been with Schenker for like 15 years. And then Gary Ostasius, the bass player, is a guy who played with Jack Russell's Great White and Firehouse and all that, and just really, really cool, great great player, great performer. And then Mark Huff is the singer, and he's a guy that came in after Kevin died in Quiet Riot and sang with Quiet Riot. I will go on the record and say this, that if you saw the documentary about Quiet Riot that Frankie put together, the thing that they don't show in that movie is that they fired Mark because it looked like he kept forgetting the lyrics. So it was like this da-da-da-da-da-da, sort of almost comedy moment thing that they were trying to kind of make fun of him. But what they didn't show in the movie was that Mark woke up in the hospital, and then he had a brain condition that required surgery. That's why he couldn't remember the lyrics. So he wakes up in the hospital, he's been fired from Quiet Riot, and he's had brain surgery, literally open brain surgery, And so he's had a rough ride as a result of that. I mean, he's really been ridiculed online, and when he did his shows with us, he was having to use, an iPad almost as a teleprompter for lyrics to remember where he was at. And he's getting better. He's really recovering well. But, people on certain message boards would go on and start bashing him where, someone would post a video of us and they'd be like, is he using an iPad? He's too lazy to do the work. And so I'd kind of go on and go, hey, just so you know, or they were like, yeah, I couldn't remember the lyrics of Quiet Riot either. And I was like, well, just so you know. And now people have kind of rallied around and are supporting him much more. But, that's that kind of stuff that I just don't think he got a fair shake. So, but anyway, so that's Endangered Species. So we ended up, we did well at that show, and we played a couple of shows. We played in San Jose, and we played in Orange County in March, and just to kind of, go out and kind of test the waters a little bit as a live act. And then we started working on a record or demos anyway. And so we've got 19 song ideas, and we have a demo of 6 songs that we're putting together. I have drum tracks done for 5 of them. We're going to shop 4 of them and then have 2 held back because they always say, what else you got? So we're going to have 6 songs total. And we have 2 European record companies that want to sign us right now, but we're looking for a deal with a U.S. label if we can get it. And, you know, when you talk record deal these days, what you're really asking for is touring support and, you know, a good booking agent, you know, that kind of thing, or good connections. So we're looking to put a record out early next year, maybe in the spring, and then tour maybe spring, but probably summer, which hopefully that will weave into this thing I'm doing with George Lynch.
Yeah, before we jump into the Lynch thing,
yeah,
for Craig, like Craig's got another band on Frontiers,
yes.
which seems like a very much a Frontiers kind of assembled super group as they do, and they do it really great.
Yes.
Which tends to never tour. It tends to be like a project band. They put out a record, a few videos, and they all go their separate ways. This, to me, by the sounds of it, is more of an authentic band. Is that fair to say?
You mean that band or my band?
No. Endangered Species to me sounds more authentic than this.
Yes.
It sounds like a real band with touring plans and perhaps more longevity.
Yeah, and you know what? Craig had signed the deal to do that record with those guys a while ago, a couple years ago, I think, and so he was sort of locked into that and had to kind of get that out of the way, so to speak. And it's a good record. I've heard it, and it's good, man. I mean, it's killer stuff. And those guys are all 4 great musicians, singers. You know, Vinny on drums. Come on. So, but the idea is, Endangered Species is more. There's a real cool sort of family thing going on. Like when we went up to San Jose, you know, we were on the bus together, just hanging out, and you know, it just has that vibe of, you know, everybody kind of came together in San Jose and said, you know, this is what I want. This is the kind of vibe and the feel and the people, and everybody's down to earth, and there's no egos, and there's no drugs, and there's no silliness, and it's just everybody's cool people, and yet everybody's good, you know, musicians, and we just really, you know, kind of connected. And so if we can do this with Endangered Species, you know, that would be really, really something special. And I think that's what Craig has been looking for since Dio, you know, where it was that kind of thing. And you know, he's very generous as far as, you know, he could say this is the Craig Goldy project, and no, it's not. It's, you know, this is an equal share band, and everybody contributes, everybody's part of it, everybody has a say, and it's important, you know, that way. And so I believe it will be that. I think that will translate into live performances and into these songs and, you know, that kind of thing. So when you see us on stage, you know what, these guys genuinely like each other. These guys really care about each other, and, you know, it's that family vibe, and support each other. And they love playing music together. You know, they love doing this and hanging out together. It really is that. And so, you know, that, to me, that connection and that sort of chemistry really translates into, again, you know, music and live performances. So that's our evil plan anyway, man. We'll see.
And how in the world did such a obvious band name as an Endangered Species, how is that even available?
Okay, so no, that is such a great question, and you don't even know what we've been through, man. Okay, so
okay, that's more like
I'm serious. We are changing the name. I can't tell you what the new name is yet, but we have the domain, and we bought a domain name, and the lawyers went out and researched it, and we have this name that we can legally use. What happened with Endangered Species was we went through all kinds of different band names, and I'm telling you, when we talk about the Lynch thing, I'll tell you more about that too, because that's been a nightmare as well, the band name. But anyway, bottom line was we've, somebody came up with Endangered Species, and everybody's like, yeah, that's cool, okay, I like it. And the idea was, musicians who can actually play and are cool people and connect and all that, and that are, available. It's an endangered species. It really is. In these times, it's just a rare breed of musician who can really play and really write and is thinking about things and wants to be relevant and all that. So anyway, that was how that came about. And then I actually got a message on our Facebook page from some guy who has it just doesn't seem like it's a really serious band, but the guy's like, I own the rights to the name, and I've published music under the name Endangered Species, and, I heard you guys were using it, and, that kind of thing. And so I didn't know if the guy wanted to just do a money grab where, he was hoping we'd buy it from him or whatever. And, our manager and the lawyers behind us are like, just say the word and we'll go make a thing of it. And I'm like, no, I mean, they weren't like, looking for a fight or anything like that. But it was like, how important is the name to you? And we were all like, it's not that important. We'll figure something else out. And we haven't really done anything yet. So
yeah, that's true.
so we're changing the name. Yeah.
And you're keeping those cards close to your chest then until it's ready to be revealed.
Correct. Yeah, we'll have that out soon. So yeah, timing wise, right now we're getting the demos done. The plan is to have a record deal signed before the end of the year, and then I can record. Again, we can record the songs. We've got to finish writing the rest of the record because again, we've got all these other ideas, and we don't want to just throw stuff on there that we've kind of got laying around. We want to really get in a room and explore what we can come up with. That might be even better than what we've got so far. And so we'll spend some time on that and then record it because I can record drum tracks in my studio, any day. So we don't have to go pay for a studio and spend, 3 months in doing that. So I can knock out the drum tracks pretty quick. And then the other guys can do all their stuff, as well. So then, again, my guess is we'll have it done next spring and be able to, and then at that point we'll probably launch the name and the website and the whole thing.
Now tell me about the band with George, which originally was the Infidels. I think you've changed your name now, but how did that come together?
Yes. So what happened was last year Halloween night I went to Rock Bar Theater in San Jose, and they were having one of those, like a guitar contest thing. They called it the Guitar Demon Rock Off. And George was one of the judges. And actually, Craig Goldy was one of the judges, too. And so sure enough, I went up there, and what they wanted was they asked me to go up and hang out for the night and then actually perform. They wanted me to perform with the winner at the end. And then I was going to do a jam with George or somebody, maybe Craig or maybe both or whatever, but they wanted me to do like a big jam at the end as well. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. So anyway, I went up there, and in the afternoon, they had a little sound check thing. And so I was just kind of checking out the drum kit because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to play on this thing later, I want to make sure everything is, where I know where everything is. And so I sat down on the drums. I was just kind of looking, and George got up there, and he had his guitar on, and he started kind of just holding out chords, and he was just checking his tone and stuff. And so as he was doing that, I started keeping time on the hi-hat. I was just, just on the foot pedal, just keeping time. And he started kind of locking into that, and then all of a sudden I just kind of quietly started playing a groove, and he started playing along, and pretty soon we just were going at it. It was like 10 or 15 minutes of us just jamming, totally old school, just not even, just the two of us, no bass player, nobody else around, just going at it. And it was good, it was really cool. And as a side note, I had seen George sit in with a band in Arizona maybe a year prior to that. And a buddy of mine is a promoter in Arizona, and so he had George come out and like sit in with this band as like a featured, special guest thing. And he's like, you got to come hang out. So I went, and I didn't meet George that night. I just watched him, but I was kind of like, okay, it's George Lynch. He's got a name. Cool. That's why he's there. But when I saw him play, he got up and played for like the first little song was, a few minutes, whatever. And one of the guys in the band that he sat in with said it was because he was just sitting in, just him. And so the guy came up and goes, "Hey, can you guys hear George?" And they were like, "No." And George went back. Everybody went crazy. Huge crowd. George goes back to his amp and just cranks it. And he walked back up to the front, put his foot up on the monitor, and just was in just the most amazing display of guitar playing I've ever seen or heard for like 45 minutes straight. It was just unreal. And I'm a drummer, and I was just like, oh my God, that's why he's George Lynch. That he is the real deal. He's not because he's a rock star, not because he has a name. He really is the real deal. If nobody knew who he was, they'd be like, this is the guy. You know what I mean? He would have been a star or on his way as a result of that. So anyway, so fast forward to last Halloween, George and I are jamming, so I'm like digging it because I know he can really, really, really play anything, So we went through all kinds of different beats and shifts and changes, and I would drop out and just keep time and let him shred, and then we'd come back in and we'd be totally grooving. Anyway, we sort of we stopped and we were like, yeah, that was fun. Yeah, thanks, and then he kind of looks at me and goes, "Who are you, man?" And I go, I'm just some guy, kind of thing. But then we looked, and the entire staff, anybody who was in the building was standing there watching us. We didn't even know. We didn't know, but everybody had come out. They were, this whole big thing. So then at the end of the night, they went to do the jam thing, and I was on the side of the stage hanging out, and George walks out on the stage, and he comes over and he goes, "Hey, where's that guy?" He's yelling at the people putting the thing on. He's like, "Where's Chris?" He goes, "I'm not doing this without Chris." And I was like, "What?" And they grabbed me and they pulled me up on stage and they kicked the drummer off the kid.
Oh, fuck.
Which I felt really bad about. I did.
Bad.
But anyway, so they had me get on and play, and George goes, "Hey, let's do that thing we were doing the sound check." And I'm like, "Okay." So we did that, and it was really cool. It was fun. And then at the end of the night, we were in the little, they had sort of a meet and greet thing afterward, and so George was, of course, getting mobbed. And so I just walked up to him because I know the guy who built his guitars, really from the beginning. His name's John Gadesi. And John was the lead design engineer at ESP, and he was trained in the business at Charvel by Grover Jackson. Okay, that's the history. So John and I were in the same kindergarten class. We've known each other since kindergarten. So I walked up to George and I go, hey George. He goes, "Oh my God, man!" He shook my hand, and I go, "I know you're busy. I'll just leave you with this. John Gadesi and I were in the same kindergarten class." And he's like, "No way," that kind of thing. And then I just walked away. So anyway, John called me, a few days later, and he's like, "George has not stopped talking about you since you guys jammed." And I'm like, "Cool." He goes, "Would you mind if I gave him your number, if you guys want to do something?" And I'm like, yeah, that'd be just fine, So,
yeah.
So George called me, and he said, "Hey, man, I'm putting this band together." And he's like, "Do you know who Pancho Tomaselli is?" And I go, "Yeah, I've heard that name, and I knew who Film was and all that." And so, he said, "Hey, we've got this thing, and it might really work out because you can really groove, but you got these chops, would you be into it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally." So we started talking, and then he said, "I'm looking for a singer," and I had just put out a single with Angelo Moore of Fishbone last year, and so he goes, "So, I listened to your thing with Angelo, and it's really cool. What's he like to work with? Is he a pretty good guy?" And I go, "Yeah, he's super creative, cool guy, and of course, he's just amazing frontman, whatever." And he goes, "Well, do you think he'd want to do this with us?" And I said, "Yeah, let me call him. I'll ask him." And so I called Angelo, and he's like, "George who? What?" And so I sent him a couple of links, and he's like, "Okay, yeah, I know who that guy is. Yeah, okay." He didn't really, he lives in such a different world, And so, so then we got together one night for literally 2 minutes. Angelo was doing a show at, I think, the Mint in L.A. Pancho and George and I drove down there at sound check, and stood on the sidewalk outside and just said, "Hey, so do you guys want to do this?" "Yeah, I'm doing it." "Okay." George goes, "I've got us a small record deal. It's going to be a one-shot album. We're not going to play any shows. It's not going to be a real band. There's not going to be a second record. We might make a video or two, but probably one video, and then we'll just go our separate ways. But we'll write some songs, we'll make some music, and we'll make some dough doing it. Are you guys in?" It's like, yeah, that sounds really simple to me, man. So that's what we did, and so then we were trying to get everybody's schedules together and all that, and it took a few months. But anyway, we finally got together, and we did 3 days of pre-production where we actually wrote, we did 3 days of writing, where we actually weren't really writing songs, but it was more like I would play a beat, and then somebody would come in with something, either Angelo with a sax, Pancho with the bass part, or George with guitar. And George is like playing a telly and playing through like an old Music Man amp or something, just a little combo amp and stuff, and just playing completely different. You would never know it's George Lynch, although it's George Lynch. It's crazy. But anyway, so we wrote for we just jammed on, did these jams that would have been 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, and in Angelo's little studio in LA, and then he has it all rigged up to record whatever we're playing. So we had these long, wave files of just, jams, and they would go through different, different changes and different, tempos or whatever. But, it was all really kind of cool stuff. And so at the end of it, we sat down on Angelo's computer and started going through them, and we started arranging the songs. And as we got going on it, I sat down at the computer, and I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Here's the riff, man. We finally, after we've been jamming on this idea for 10 minutes, George arrived at this riff that's really cool, and he only played it one time. But you know what? If we take that and we put it to the put it at the beginning of the song, and we loop it a couple of times, now we've got an intro riff, and then where we break down right there, let's move that over and edit that in to make that the verse part, And so I started crafting these songs. We started arranging them like that, and I was like totally digging this, I've never done it that way. And at the end of it, we ran out of time because George was going on tour with Lynch Mob, and Pancho was going to Europe with film or whatever, and Angela was going somewhere with Fishbone, and I was going back to my studio to record drum tracks. And so George goes, "Hey man, can you take this back to your studio, Chris, and actually arrange maybe 10 songs out of this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do my best, man." So I sat down, and for weeks I did that, weeks. And I just finished filming my DVD, the drum book DVD. I just finished the clips, so I had the time to do it. So I just sat there day and night figuring out all these arrangements and creating songs out of jams, and sent them off to the guys. They were all really happy with it. And then we wrote one song. Out of the whole thing, we wrote one complete song, only because it was that. It became that song. I'll never forget the look on George's face, sitting on his amp, leaning against the wall, playing this, riff that was just so cool and pristine and just amazing. And the song's called Landslide Salvation. And I actually, I took the recording of it that night, and Angelo was sort of scatting lyrics over it, and I took what he was kind of, some of these ideas, and I actually wrote the lyrics to that song that night because I was so inspired by it. And anyway, and so then we got back together in June. I think it was June. We did 3 days of rehearsal and took those arrangements and learned them during those weeks, and so went to rehearsal and played through the songs so we could actually track them live in the studio. And after 3 days of rehearsal, we went straight in and tracked for 3 days straight, and came out with 12 songs. But we recorded everything, all the basics, live, and actually we did it all analog. We did it on a 3/4-inch tape
Wow.
scan machine. Yeah.
So the writing of the songs couldn't have been any more digital.
Yeah.
Then the recording was full analog.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing was, it really did sound like a bunch of guys jamming together, in the beginning of it, and then it sort of morphs into these songs. And so at the rehearsals, we took those arrangements and really dialed them in. In other words, we really figured out, George was like, all right, I'm going to clean up this guitar part, or what I'm doing there, I really didn't know what I was doing, but I worked on it, and now I have a really good riff, or I've cleaned this up, and, that kind of thing. So we were prepped going into the studio, and then yeah, but you're right, it was like a digital beginning and then an analog, end, and it sounds like a cross between early Chili Peppers, like pre-Rick Rubin, and maybe like early Rage Against the Machine stuff, but with Angelo actually singing, because he's got this amazing soulful voice. It sounds like a cross between, again, early Chili Peppers and King's X. The stuff really grooves. They had me playing on a 1972 Rogers kit that was in the studio in the corner, all baffled in. And I normally play, I have like 4 crash cymbals and 2 chinas and, my ride cymbal. I have, just cymbals all over the place. And on this record, Poncho, the bass player, arranged it at the studio that he knows, where it's like the mecca for R&B records to be done. And this kit that they've got, it's got that magic sound, I guess, whatever. And so they have 2 cymbal stands that are both rusted out, wobbly cymbal stands. And so normally my ride cymbal is right by my hi-hat, because I play open lefty. So I had to ride on the crash cymbal, so I had to put a crash ride on, and it was all wobbly when I was hitting it. In fact, there's one song where in the breakdown you hear me actually miss the bell of the cymbal because I hit, because it was moving so bad, right? And then the other cymbal, the stand was so thrashed that the cymbal was broken at the top, so the cymbal would actually spin around slowly when I'd hit it. So I actually had to time when I was going to hit the cymbal so it wouldn't go doink, I swear that's true. And, and so I'm like looking at Poncho, I'm like, I'm going to record a George Lynch record on this, and he's like, dude, I'm going to be right in front of you. He's like, we're just going to groove together. That's what this is all about. We're going to do this live together, you and me. We're going to be grooving. So you don't have to do crazy drum fills and all that other speed mechanics for drum stuff. Just groove, brother. So that's what we did, man.
And in terms of the name, what hoops did you have to go through with that?
Okay, so what happened was the original name for the band was the Infidels, and it was Poncho's deal. Poncho put the band together in the beginning a few years ago because he and George are ESP endorsed artists, or they endorse ESP guitars, and so he was at ESP's offices designing his signature model bass, and he saw this big picture of George that they have in there, and he's like, is George a good guy, man? Do you think he's one of my total heroes? Do you think he'd ever want to do anything? And they were like, here's his number, call him. So sure enough, George was like, yeah, I'd be totally down to work with you. And that's how it started. So the original idea that Poncho had was, Poncho is from Ecuador, so he wanted it to be this Central American, rebel type of thing of the Infidels, and they'd wear like camo, and sort of, the green, hat, the green army hats, and that kind of stuff, and red stars, and all that kind of Infidels like that. So when we started talking about it, when we got really serious about it, I was like, you guys, I just don't know if Infidels is the best name for a band in these times. I just don't know if that's really a smart choice. And they were like, yeah, well, we got to figure out something else. And it kept, we would have that discussion. I'm not kidding, man. Every couple of weeks, we would either via text, or if we were together, or email, everybody would start suggesting names, and nothing was really sticking. And so finally, I sent the guys some stuff that that I found online that talked about, infidels and in today's world, what that potentially means. And so they were like, yeah, okay. I said, just show this to your families and ask them if you think Infidels is a good name for a band. And so anyway, they were like, yeah, you're right. So Angelo had this other idea of like a side story that goes along with the album and the songs, and there was this storyline that he has, and it's called Project Infidelica. And so he said, why don't we just call the band that? And everybody was sort of like, yeah, okay. So that's kind of where we are. But Project Infidelica is probably what we're going to call it. We're still not 100% there, by the way, because the record doesn't come out till January, and we're filming a video in 3 weeks. So I don't know what, it'll be funny in the coming months what we end up calling the band.
Yeah, especially you got George Lynch, who's, got the band Lynch Mob, and he takes enough shit for that, and he's sensitive enough about that he probably doesn't want to step into it with another band name.
No, and he is, and I'll tell you something about George, okay? I didn't know, I really didn't know him working with him, or until I started working with him, and I had heard stories about him, good and bad, and George is such a great guy. And, I think in the 80s and 90s and stuff, it was like he was just gonzo. He was a freaking guitar hero, just going for it, living the life. And now he just really seems to be a very centered, down-to-earth, great guy. I mean, really great guy. And somebody that I would call a friend and be like, you know what, this guy's got my back. And he really... he's just a good guy, man. I was, again, you never know. And if anybody were, at shows and all that, I think he really kind of gets mobbed, and so it's a little awkward for him because he's actually kind of shy. But one-on-one, sitting in a room with the guy or just talking on the phone with him, he's just a really good dude.
Now, is this still going to be a project, or has it evolved into anything else?
Okay, so... that's a good question, man. What happened is, again, it was going to be this one-off deal, and then we started. So I wrote lyrics on 4 of the songs, and then Angelo wrote the rest. And Angelo is an amazing lyricist. I mean, just really cool stuff and really good ideas. And the way he sings, and the way he sings it is just God. He's got this great voice. And and I'll tell you one other side thing. Is George, we didn't get the vocals done when we recorded at Killian Sound, and so George goes, you know what, we're going to have to do the vocals at my studio, and if you guys are cool with that. So I went to George's studio I think it was a Sunday night, and he was leaving at like 5 a.m. for another leg of the Lynch Mob tour. And so they needed somebody to actually run the sessions and engineer the sessions, and then Angelo was going to come over and sing and, play keyboard, or, play organ and theremin and sax and all that. And so, so he said, can you run the sessions, Chris? Can you engineer? And I'm like, well, I'm good at doing it for my drums, but I don't know about for this other stuff. We need somebody who really knows his board, really knows how to do it. Well, my son Jaron, who's 19, knows how to engineer really, really well and can run sessions. And so I said, if you guys will trust me that my son can do it, we can go do this. And so sure enough, Jaron came with me, and we stayed at George's house. Jaron slept on a futon in the studio. I slept on the floor of George's studio in my sleeping bag, and we spent, I guess, 5 days there. Angelo would drive back and forth from LA because we live in Orange County, so it was about an 80-mile drive. So we just stayed at George's house, and Jaron engineer did an amazing job. I mean, it was so pro and came out so awesome. But then, so Angelo and I were writing, like, he's like, can you take these songs and write lyrics to those? And and I'll do these. And so I was like, one of the nights I stayed up in my sleeping bag until 3 a.m. writing the lyrics to a song called I Know. And then, we finished those, and while Angela was singing that song, I was writing the lyrics to another song, and, called Rain Again, and, that kind of thing. It was just like, 5 days of just full blast writing and recording at George's place. And we were sending the mixes to George and Pancho because they were both on tour. So every night when we'd finish, and George is just like, oh my God, I can't believe this, you guys. This is so good. And so at the end of it, George was like, this is the most important record I've ever done. And he's like, what's being said, and the music and all that. And it's not a George Lynch shred fest. In fact, George is like an equal band member here. He's like just the guitar player. It's not like he's tearing it up. In fact, the label president was kind of trying to egg him on a little bit, going, George, come on, man, just do one ripping solo. Come on. And I'm not playing crazy drum stuff. It's all very, very group oriented, and really, we're all playing for the song. And so George is like, this is the most important record I've ever done because it says something. The lyrics really say something. There's a message. There's a statement. And these, the way that it's being done, and who's in the band, just kind of the way it is, and the vibe and the way it came about. He's like, this is really special to me. So he's gonna carve out time next year to tour with us. We want to do a record. Yeah, we had it mixed by Bob Dasted, my buddy, who's Sammy Hagar's producer, mixed it for us. It sounds amazing. So we're gonna definitely do another record.
So you've got new name for Endangered Species. You've got Project Infidelica.
Yeah, Project Infidelica. Yeah.
And that's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, with the spelling, but
yeah.
But we'll see if that name holds.
Yeah.
So it took you on and off 30 years in the business or so, and now you've got 2 huge records coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Seriously, Brian, I wake up in the morning and I kind of go, okay, wait. Like, wait a minute. What am I... Okay, like I sort of get my, my bearings, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in a band with George Lynch, and I'm in a band with Craig Goldy, and I have a record done and in the can with George. We're filming a video in 3 weeks. I'm in a band with Craig Goldy. We're doing the demos, and we should have a record deal by the end of the year, and I'll be figuring out a way to tour with both bands next year. And I have a drum book and DVD coming out, but I can't think about that because I got to get to the studio because I got to work on this today. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Man, I'm really excited, and just so grateful beyond words to be able to do this every day. It's crazy.
That's it for this week. If you like what you heard, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. It really helps the show. Until next week, I'm Brian Sword. Thanks for listening to The Double Stop.